Singapore introduces a wearable electronic monitoring device as a way to track travellers during their stay-home notice period.
Changing it up during COVID, thousands of mid-career Singaporeans successfully convert to new jobs during these challenging times.
And bringing NDP to the heartlands, this year's state flag flypast involved not one but two flags.
A very good evening. It is a brand new week. You're watching The Big Story, coming to you live from the Straits Times newsroom. I'm Haryanto Diman.
And I'm Olivia Quay. You can of course subscribe to the Straits Times channel so you never miss a single episode.
Let's start with an update on Singapore's COVID-19 situation. Now, 226 new cases were confirmed today, taking the total to just over 53,000. More details will be shared later tonight, but the Health Ministry preliminarily reported that today's count includes one community case.
He's a prison inmate on a short-term visit pass who had arrived before the implementation of border measures. He was segregated from the general population at Changi Prison since his admission on July 30th and was tested as part of the Singapore Prison Service's proactive screening of newly admitted inmates. There were also 9 imported cases who had been placed on stay-home notices upon their arrival.
Now, speaking of imported cases, from August 11th, all travellers entering Singapore who are serving their stay-home notice outside dedicated facilities will have to wear an electronic monitoring device throughout the 14-day period.
They include citizens, permanent residents, long-term pass holders, work pass holders and their dependents. But children aged 12 and below are exempted.
In a joint statement today, the Immigration and Checkpoints Authority and the Ministries of Manpower and Education said the devices will allow them to monitor those serving the SHN more effectively.
The devices are a change from the combination of text messages, voice and video calls, as well as house visits the authorities have been using to make sure the rules are observed. Travellers will be issued with a device at the checkpoints after clearing immigration.
They will need to activate it once they reach their place of residence. If it's not activated, the authorities will follow up to determine their location and help with technical difficulties or take enforcement action as needed.
Any attempt to leave the place of residence or tamper with the device will trigger an alert to the authorities. Those who tamper with or remove the device during the SHN period can be fined or jailed or face both punishments.
For foreigners, ICA and MOM can also revoke or shorten the validity of permits and work passes. After the SHN is fully served, the device should be deactivated and thrown away or returned according to instructions. We have journalist Tee Zhuo to share more on this electronic tracking device. Tee, you're at Changi Airport where you just attended a briefing on this device. Can you tell us how does it work? What are the features of this device?
Right, thanks, Haryanto. So there are actually 3 components to this device. One is a wearable wristband, and then the second one is an app, and then there's a gateway. So how it works is basically a gateway or multiple gateways can be installed in the home depending on the size, and then depending on how far away the wristband, which works with Bluetooth, gets away from the gateway, they can tell if you have exceeded the boundaries of your home. So the app, the separate component, allows the person to get notifications from the authorities and also comes with GPS. So that can tell the authority the distance from by which the person has left the home, if the person has left the home. But the real focus is, of course, the low-energy Bluetooth device, which alerts the authorities immediately if you have left your home.
As with any tracking device, there are concerns about privacy. So how are wearers of this one assured that their privacy will not be compromised?
Yeah, so I did ask the director from ICA about these privacy concerns. And what they have assured me is that, well, first of all, the data is encrypted end-to-end. So, there's that level of protection when the data is transmitted back to the authority servers. The second thing is the wristband itself doesn't store any data at all. And then I think it also, the whole operation adheres to public sector data security guidelines, which means that only authorized government officials will be able to access the data. And the app itself on the phone will lock down after the 14-day stay-home period. Yeah.
And why did the authorities decide to roll out this electronic tracking device now? Are they expecting more travelers to enter Singapore?
Yes, definitely. I think that is a prime concern. So just now what the ICA and the home team officers who were present told us is they need a more sustainable way to continue to track the large amounts of stay-home notice individuals that will continue to come in as Singapore progressively opens up. For example, come next week on August 10th, our Green Lane with Malaysia will be opening up. So with this influx of people coming in, no doubt they will have to they'll have to serve out their 14-day SHNs. So at its peak, ICA once had to, monitor about 40,000 individuals, and they are expecting similar, if not more, numbers. And they say that, this new device will help to reduce manpower, increase efficiency, and, overall just help to reduce the effort needed by individual officers to, say, for example, visit homes and conduct video calls.
Well, thank you so much, Tee, for coming onto the show to talk more about this new tracking device. We were speaking to journalist Tee Zhuo. Now, from August 11th, all travellers entering Singapore who are serving their SHN outside of dedicated facilities will have to wear an electronic monitoring device.
In other COVID-19 developments around the region, the Philippines is reverting to stricter restrictions around its capital starting tomorrow for 2 weeks. Making the announcement last night, President Rodrigo Duterte said, "Sorry Manila," as officials announced a record 5,032 new cases in the country. From tomorrow, only essential travel will be allowed in Manila, a city of 12 million people. The Philippines is set to overtake Indonesia this week in terms of total cases, making it Southeast Asia's new epicenter of the pandemic.
Over in Australia, nearly 5 million residents in Melbourne are spending a second night under curfew as part of the country's harshest lockdown to date. The nightly crew from 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. will be in place for 6 weeks. Authorities have struggled to control a recent surge in infections with high numbers of community transmissions and cases of unknown origin. Victoria State today reported 429 new cases, continuing weeks of high case numbers.
4 areas in Malaysia's Kedah state have gone into lockdown after officials reported a cluster of 20 cases linked to a restaurant in Kubang Pasu. 5 schools have also closed for 28 days as part of the targeted enhanced movement control order. Well, back in Singapore, despite the economic uncertainties brought on by COVID-19, more employers have been tapping PCPs or professional conversion programs to reskill mid-career new hires or prepare current employees for new roles.
Workforce Singapore said that more than 900 companies took part in these programs in the first half of 2020, up about 13%. That's resulted in more than 2,600 mid-career individuals benefiting, about 20% more than the first half of 2019.
Now, the increase was mainly due to more people taking up redeployment PCPs for new or enhanced roles in their existing organization. Joining us to discuss this is Manpower correspondent Joanna Seow. Now, Joanna, over 2,600 mid-careerists benefited in the first half of the year, but how possible is it for people to make a mid-career switch in this COVID-19 time? Do you see the numbers rising or falling for the remainder of the year?
Thanks, Ollie and Yen. Well, the numbers appear to show that it is possible since the number of employers taking part, as well as the workers who benefited, both went up this year. There's 2 sides to this because employers could be wary of hiring anyone new, even though the PCP subsidize wages or training allowances during the training period. But at the same time, if they do have room to expand, they are actually getting more trained workers at a kind of like a subsidized cost for a period. So the figures in this story actually cover 3 types of programs, which include redeployment PCPs and place and train PCPs, both of which put the participant into a new job. There are also attach and train PCPs, which provide a work attachment but don't guarantee a job at the end. So we could see more people being reskilled through the attach and train format rather than direct job placements, since companies are facing such an uncertain hiring outlook at this time. And it's quite interesting because last year, actually, the number of people placed in new roles through PCPs actually fell. But this year, the PCPs and other reskilling programs are a big part of the government's push to provide work and training opportunities for the thousands of job seekers that will be impacted by the pandemic. So hopefully we'll see more placements this year.
Joanna, on that note, then, what is the general mindset of the mid-careerist? What should he or she be prepared for when making a successful transition?
Okay, well, mid-career workers could be at a range of ages and life stages. So I think the easiest time to switch careers would probably be fresh out of school or in the early years of a job, because like maybe you studied something that you don't think is going to lead anywhere and you want to try a different career path. It gets harder for middle-aged people, so say those between age between 40 to 60. They tend to have heavy financial commitments, such as their mortgage payments, maybe supporting their children's education as well as elderly parents. And this group has been a big focus of the government's policy efforts this year, with lots of extra help rolled out in the multiple budgets. So usually they're in more senior positions in their jobs, so moving into a new industry or a different role would probably mean they have to take maybe a pay cut if they are moving into an entry-level job. So some of the experts that I talked to said that it's important to be realistic about this and also keep an open mind.
Moving on to a separate topic, the National Wages Council will meet for a second time this year. Now, this is considered a rather rare move because it usually convenes just once a year. And back on March 30th, it released its recommendations, which many employers took a cue from to manage excess manpower. So, Joanna, what do you think will be discussed this time when the NWC reconvenes?
Well, definitely the worsening situation in the labour market. So last week, the preliminary estimates for the second quarter of this year, which is from April to June, show that unemployment and retrenchment had spiked compared with the first quarter. And this is only the fourth time ever that the council is reconvening in the same year. So the previous times were all in economic crises, 2009, which was the global financial crisis, 2001 after the 9/11 attacks, and also 1998 amid the Asian financial crisis. And back in 1998, the council actually gave a quantum amount for wage cuts. So it recommended that in addition to a cut to employers' CPF contributions, which made up about 8% of overall wages, it said that total wages for 1998 should be cut by about 5 to 8% as compared to 1997. And this year, actually, in March, when they met, the council had considered whether to recommend reducing the CPF contribution rates for employers to cut wage costs. But then PERMSEC for Manpower, Beckham, had said that because of the job support scheme wage subsidies, they far exceed the employer CPF contribution rates, which are up to 17%. So that's why the government felt that it was not needed. I mean, a cut to the rate was not needed at that time. And well, I guess looking forward, I spoke with Mr. Zainal Supari earlier. He was one of NTUC's Assistant Secretaries General, and he often speaks up for low-wage workers. So he was telling me that he hopes that the council will continue to push for wage increases for low-wage workers even amid the pandemic, because many of the salaries of these low-wage essential workers are still in the bottom 10th percentile.
Right. Well, that was Joanna Seow, Manpower correspondent for the Straits Times. Joanna, thank you so much for coming on the show.
As the economic fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic continues to be felt across industries, workers in Singapore need to be prepared for retrenchments and cutbacks, despite substantial financial support from the government. In his National Day message this morning, Labour Chief Ng Chee Meng said that NTUC remains prepared to support workers in these challenging times by protecting workers, preserving and creating jobs, as well as providing support for those in need.
From this Friday, August 7th, 12 religious organizations will be allowed to hold gatherings of up to 100 people, double the number these places are currently allowed to host. Well, these are the 12 sites, and they include mosques, Hindu temples, Buddhist temples, churches and gurdwaras. They will see new safe distancing measures, including the use of 2 separate zones of up to 50 people. The Culture, Community and Youth Ministry said the selected sites were proven to be able to safely conduct congregational and other worship services for up to 50 people under Phase 2 guidelines.
An improved contactless temperature scanner that is far cheaper than the original version has been designed and rolled out by the Government Technology Agency in an ongoing bid to fight the coronavirus. Due to delays caused by the circuit breaker, the agency has had to mass-produce 340 machines in about 2 weeks so that they could be rolled out to elder care facilities as a precautionary measure, particularly as Singapore reopened. A spokesman said that it had received feedback that the original model, which was produced in March, was bulky and difficult to transport, and also received requests to make the device more affordable.
According to social services organisation Samaritans of Singapore, the total number of suicides here saw a slight increase in 2019, with 400 reported suicide cases, up from 397 the year before. The centre's yearly study revealed that suicide remains the leading cause of death for youths between 10 and 29 years old. Earlier today, SOS told the media that the number of suicide deaths among those aged 20 to 29 remains highest compared to all other age groups. In 2019, 71 youths in that age group took their own lives. Now, if you or a loved one is experiencing suicidal thoughts, here are some numbers you can call, and for your reference, take a screenshot of this list as well.
Good evening, I'm Dylan Ang. Let's take a look at what's also in the news. Sources say US President Donald Trump has agreed to give China's ByteDance 45 days to negotiate a sale of popular short video app TikTok to Microsoft Corporation. US officials had earlier said that the app poses a national risk because of the personal data it handles. Mr. Trump had also mentioned plans to ban the app in the United States. In a statement on Sunday, Microsoft said it aims to reach a deal by September 15th. The Hong Kong government's decision to postpone an election for the city's legislature by a year may be unlawful, according to the city's Bar Association. On Friday, Chief Executive Carrie Lam had postponed the election, citing public health dangers in the city, but added that there were also political considerations. The poll will have been Hong Kong's first official vote since Beijing imposed its new security law. NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley splashed down in the Gulf of Mexico on Sunday after a 2-month voyage that was NASA's first crewed mission from home soil in 9 years. The duo returned at 2:48 p.m. off Florida's Pensacola coast following a 21-hour journey aboard the SpaceX Crew Dragon Endeavour. The successful splashdown marks the completion of a key final test to prove the SpaceX craft can safely transport astronauts to and from space. And those are the stories that are also in the news.
Thanks, Dylan. Now, take note of this for your commuting plans over the National Day weekend, because 18 SBS Transit bus services will be affected by road closures for NDP.
That's right. From 9 p.m. on August 8th to 2 p.m. on August 9th, these services will be diverted to alternative routes. They'll also skip 5 bus stops along Connaught Drive, Esplanade Drive, Parliament Place and North Bridge Road.
The bus stops that will be affected are those opposite the Singapore Cricket Club on Esplanade Bridge, in front of the Supreme Court, after City Hall Station Exit B and opposite the Treasury.
And of course, we're just days away from celebrating Singapore's 55th birthday. Jan, what are you most looking forward to at NDP 2020?
I am excited to watch the aerial display, actually. That is something that I always look forward to every year. You know, with the F-15 flying, and I think it's really nice to kind of just, because you don't get to see that on a normal day-to-day celebration. Exactly. So it's just during the NDP.
Well, Haryanto, you are in for a treat, because this year, for the first time, Singaporeans will get to enjoy the state flag fly past from their homes. 2 Chinook helicopters, each carrying the Singapore flag 1,000 feet in the air, will fly across Singapore on 2 separate routes in the east and the west of the island.
Both routes are slated to start at 10:30 a.m. and will each take 55 minutes. Now, this is unlike previous years when the flypast took place at a single location and lasted only 10 minutes. The Straits Times goes behind the scenes of this new setup.
The Republic of Singapore Air Force will bring National Day to Singaporeans with state flag flypasts over the heartland.
As this year's celebrations is slightly different and Singaporeans are not able to join us in the Padang where we normally conduct our state flag flypast, we will be bringing the state flag flypast to the heartlands this year with 2 formations of helicopter aircraft, one going to the east and one to the west.
The eastern and western route is selected based on planning considerations to ensure that the state flag has maximum exposure to the heartlands and people at home. At the same time, we have safety considerations to ensure that the state flag is flown in a safe route and height, and safety of the populace is of priority.
With a slightly more compressed timeline, especially flying rehearsals, most of our training and preparation work was done on ground and with the use of flight simulators as well, to be able to perform to the required standards.
It's somehow rather a challenging year, especially because we get to fly into the heartlands. So as crew members, we have to be familiar with the route that we are flying within the heartlands, and also to look out those special obstacles like cranes along the way or high-rise buildings.
On the ground, it takes 25 men between 45 minutes to 2 hours to fold each 140-kilogram flag. The flags are flown to Pulau Sudong, where they are rigged to the Chinooks with shackles and ballasts totaling over 1,000 kilograms.
Well, very exciting indeed. And the Straits Times has a special show for NDP 2020. Haryanto with Renee Po will be at the Padang, and the rest of us will be all around the island to bring you the other highlights like the Red Lions landing in the heartlands, as well as the mobile collar making its way around Singapore. You can of course catch it on our Facebook and YouTube platforms from 9:30 a.m. this Sunday, August the 9th.
In the meantime, you can visit straitstimes.com for more news and videos. And remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the red button below. Once again, I'm Haryanto Diman with Olivia Quay. We'll see you tomorrow.